Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pistol Australia weekend webinar. Today we're going to talk all things WA1500. It's our international edition. So we've got Dean Bruce and Marnie Jones from Australia, Thomas Svensson joining us from Sweden, and Kelvin Carter from across the ditch in New Zealand. So a nice international panel here to talk away. But just before we introduce our panellists, I just want to let people know that the Q&A button is at the bottom of your screens for all our attendees, and if you click on that you can ask questions. Just please click on that and ask questions as we go, and I'll bring those into the conversation as we get going. So let's go through now and open the screen up and welcome all our participants. Ladies first, we'll start with Marnie. How are you going?
I'm going really good, Mike. How are you going?
Very good. Life in lockdown for you. I know you live in a rural area, bushfires in Australia, then into COVID, so it's been a pretty tough time out in the bush in Australia.
Yeah, it's been a pretty unusual start to the year for everybody. I'd have to say we haven't done it quite so bad out in the regional areas, some of the metro areas. So, yeah, I think we've been fairly lucky with ourselves with the bushfire situation, also not really too close to us. And the COVID, yeah, we haven't had hardly any cases, so everyone's been doing the right thing.
That's fantastic. And we'll stay in Australia for the moment with Dean Bruce, of course, champion shooter, champion coach, and you run a business where you fight the bushfires. So you've had a very, very busy summer. Of course, the WA1500 World Championship, you went straight from there into the firefighting mode. It's been a really hectic time for you.
Yeah, good evening, Mike, and everyone. Certainly, it was a very, very intense fire season for us. Yeah, we left the 1500 World Championships directly straight to the northern part of the state, and we launched both our helicopters, and we finished on the south coast in mid to late February. So it was a pretty intense few months.
Welcome along, Dean. And Kelvin Carter across in New Zealand. Mate, welcome along. No rugby for you to watch at the moment. All sports shut down. But, mate, fantastic. We've had you across here in Australia twice in 2019. You came for the PA National Championships in April last year, and then came back for the WA 1500 World Championships. Great that you came across with some of your compatriots and brought a bit of a team.
Yes, we did, Mike. We had a marvellous time. And yeah, something that many of the team hope that they can do again. We've been having it reasonably tough here in New Zealand. My wife and I run a motel, so the accommodation industry in New Zealand has taken a real kick in the teeth, like a lot of the businesses, and yeah, so it hasn't been that easy. But the country's moving along now, and we're slowly starting to come out of it.
Yeah, hopefully lifting of restrictions, then tourism's going to start up, and people are going to be able to come and maybe spend some money and have a weekend away and stay in your motel and spend some money in the town.
That's the hope of everybody, and yeah, we're hoping that the Aussie link gets opened up in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I hear that's going to happen. And of course, let's go all the way now into Europe, Western Europe, and the top of Europe there in Sweden, Thomas Svensson. Number 1 ranked shooter in WA 1500 in Sweden, number 5 ranked in the world. Mate, welcome along.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It is actually a pleasure to be with you. A little bit more happier during this lockdown. Sweden has been hit very, very hard of the COVID. And all sports is banned. We can practice, but for the WA 1500, we don't have any range locally. So we try to improvise, but practicing in teams or anything else like that is just to forget.
Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, we were talking just before we came online, and you said the 50-metre range is in another country. So where is that, and how far to travel? And obviously those borders are closed at the moment.
Yeah, we have 200 kilometers to that range. It takes nearly 2 hours to drive. We are building a new indoor range for the 50 meters, but that isn't ready, and it might be ready this Christmas, but we'll see. But we have been doing this for maybe 10 years. We've been traveling three times a week to this other range far, far away. And it is a local political decision that the current range is out of ban. We actually do have a 50-meter range on the site, but it's not allowed to use because of some influence of the neighbors. What to say? They don't like
Yeah.
shooting at all. So
Well, that's a shame. But you've been to Australia, so you understand that for people like Marnie and Dean, travelling a couple of hours to go for a shoot is probably pretty normal to go to competitions. We're a big country, and the boys and girls travel around a fair bit to get to where they need to go.
yeah, I have no trouble traveling around. I mean, we travel for a weekend shoot. We travel 500 kilometers, easy. One or two cars, and we just sit in the cars and drive, and that's normal for us. So we do that 25, 30 times a year. So it is how to say a normal situation that we travel a lot. So we.
It is indeed. So I might start one of my first questions off to Dean. The history of WA 1500, the origins of the match, and obviously we have a governing body, I think is based in Europe, but can you take us back to the origins of WA 1500, Dean?
Well, for us, Mike, it was introduced into Australia when PA became affiliated with the WA 1500 Association, and we as the Australian shooters had to certainly demonstrate that we were keen and enthusiastic to adopt the match, and we had to start that at regional level, and then we moved through to state level, and it's kept gaining momentum, and then Pistol Australia then introduced it as a demonstration match at one of the national championships up in Brisbane, and the following year then we had WA 1500 in our national championships, and that was also the first opportunity that the Australian shooters got to have to be selected and represent Australia. So that was our introduction into the WA 1500.
So Thomas, globally, WA 1500, I know the first World Championships were in 2007 in Germany. Pre that, what was it like in Europe, and was the match being shot by a lot of people?
The match was shot by how to say a close community. It was huge. It was brought in by UK from the States. So when the gun ban in UK came 97, it moved over to Germany, and Germany became the driver in this shooting. And it has been ongoing since 97 down in Germany, and then it had started to spread out. And in 1984, no, sorry, in 2000 and maybe 2001, we have the first local or first championship in Sweden. It was how to say a state championship, not official one. But Sweden have been traveling down to Germany quite a lot to shoot in this. And in 2010, we have a first official Swedish championship, officially promoted by the shooting union here in Sweden. But we have been having a lot of international travels coming to Sweden. Every unofficial championship every year have been attended by several shooters from both from Germany and England. And now it is a big motor around Europe. We have open championships in almost every country that are participating in WA 1500. And it is always in Sweden. If anyone wants to attend every state match or every cup match we have here in Sweden, or everybody is allowed to attend. So if you're traveling around and like to shoot PPC, it's just to attend the Swedish Cup match if you are in the area. We have been running that in those, how to say, on those circumstances, because we want to have a lot of attendees coming to us. And the harder competition there are, the better you have to be. So it helps the shooting community to become better.
So, Marnie, we were talking also just before we came on air, get you into the conversation here. One of the questions we've got, any idea where the next WA 1500 World Champs will be held? Now, that sort of comes on the back of our conversation. The European Champs, and Thomas would know, has been cancelled in the Czech Republic. Marnie, you can take up the story there for us.
Yes, they cancelled the Czech Republic Europeans, and they have decided that they're going to, or it was going to be decided, to have the Europeans held next year in Czech Republic, and then they're going to try and move the World Championships to the following year. So we're actually going to miss this year completely and just take up with the Europeans next year. That's my understanding anyway.
And is there any idea of where the next World Championships may be held? I mean, we've had, what have we had? 3 in Germany, 2 in Sweden, 2 in Australia. So do we think we might go somewhere else within Europe? There's 16 nations on that world rankings list, so there's plenty of countries where it can go.
I think it's Austria, isn't it, Thomas?
Yeah, the main target is Austria, and there are a suitable range in Austria. It's just the Austrian ISSF that needs to approve it. It is a former biathlon range, an old one that is not in use anymore. It's just used for training practices, but it is ideal for PPC.
So we can say World Championships earmarked for Austria in 2022, and that would probably be maybe middle of the year, due to the summer over in Europe?
In August.
August.
Probably in
Okay.
August. Yeah. As the Europeans, excluding the Nordic countries, there are main holidays in August. In Sweden we have in July, but the main holiday in Europe are in August, and it suits just about everybody to have it in August.
Well, there you go. Glenn, who asked the question there, you can aim for August in 2022 in Austria and get training and working hard and get across. And of course, you can go and just shoot Marnie either in the Australian team. You're a member of the Australian team, but you can also go and shoot as individuals as well.
Yes, you can. And I actually did that for quite a number of years before I made it into the team. And, anyone can go. You just obviously have to pay your own way. And as Thomas said, everybody welcomes you over there, and everyone is so easy to get along with and helpful. So you don't have to be in an Australian team or a national team. Anybody can compete. So you could still be world champion in any match. It doesn't mean you have to be in a national team. So anyone can go.
Yeah. So, Kelvin, you guys came across April 2019 to the Pistol Australia National Championships with a team of guys, and then you came back for the WA1500. It's not a match that you shoot a lot in New Zealand. Tell us about the genesis of why you came across it and how WA1500, is it growing? Is there an opportunity to get a foothold into New Zealand?
Well, WA1500 got off to a very inauspicious start in New Zealand. A few of us got together and decided that we would try and shoot this match called WA1500, and we got the rule book out, and we got some service match targets, and we put a few of these service match targets down on the line as you do, and nowhere in the rule book could we find that you're only supposed to put one target down at a time. So I won't go too much further, but needless to say that shooting more than one target on a WA1500 match just doesn't work. So we made a complete foul up of our first shoot 1500 match, and since then we've progressed a little bit. We came to Australia, as you mentioned, and that was pretty much our first experience of proper WA1500. We didn't do too well at the Aussie Nationals, but we learnt a lot. I second what Marnie was just saying, that the people at these competitions are always willing to share their experiences and share their knowledge. And Glenn and I got a lot of knowledge from those competitions, brought it back to the World Championships, and he got a couple of medals and I got a couple of medals as well. So we went home with big smiles. What's happening in New Zealand from now on? Our championship were cancelled or postponed until November this year because of COVID-19. And so we're looking forward to having that match. In future, we're looking probably forward to combining WA1500 with our service championships, more like you have in Australia, and that might generate a little bit of interest for some Australian shooters to come across to New Zealand and join us in our national championships. So that's something that we're looking forward to in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, there you go, Dean. There's an invitation to get across to New Zealand. I know you guys hooked up with Kelvin, and obviously it was Glenn Tanner that came back for the WA1500, and there was another crew of guys at the PA Nationals, and you were talking to them, helping them. You operate as a coach as well as a competitor, Dean?
Yeah, we were quite overwhelmed when we first went overseas to the first WA1500 World Championships. There was an exceptional welcoming from the host nation in Germany, and we certainly adapted that same attitude. It's been the same ever since we've been representing over there, and of course we were just more than obliged to help out the New Zealand guys when they came over. Pete and I spent a fair bit of time with them, and I'd done a fair bit of range officering at the Nationals and guided the guys through, and pre and post match we certainly had plenty of range time and talked about our the various loads and the various rules and regulations in relation to the match, and they've taken that home with them, and yeah, and for Kelvin and Glenn to come back over and as you said, to come home with a couple of medals from our World Championships. It's really encouraging. They've sort of adopted the match, and they've taken home some of the good oil, and hopefully they're sharing that with their shooting companions over there, and it'll grow in New Zealand over the ditch. And yeah, we'll be certainly keen to get over and mix it up with them in both pistol and WA1500 and return serve.
Yeah, I've got another question here from Glenn. I'm imagining this is Glenn Tanner, because he said we'd love to get Dean across for a coaching holiday. So Kelvin, that's probably Dean, Glenn on the line there, and welcome along, Glenn Tanner.
That sounds like Glenn.
Yeah. So there you go. So you've got double invitation now to get some Aussies together and get across to New Zealand and have a go at the WA1500 in their country, and obviously have a look around. One of the great things, obviously, about being an international competitor is travelling and meeting people. And Thomas, obviously, it's a pretty close-knit community through Europe.
Yeah, it is a close community, but it is a happy and joy to actually to meet others. And actually, the best thing is to meet others is actually that you help out. That's the best thing to get to know people, and that's the best thing for the WA1500. And whatever person that needs help, you do help them. Then you get a much friendlier face on the person you help, and that person also gets a good impression of what actually the core of the WA1500 are. It is actually to help each other. We are heartbeat competitors on the line, but on the backside, we do whatever we can to help out. So that's the big strength of the WA1500 in Europe. Everybody help out. So for those Aussies or New Zealanders who want to travel to Europe, just ping a note away, and everybody will help you. So no worries to come to Europe.
Yeah, that was certainly the theme at the WA1500 World Championships last year in Australia. They want to help everyone out. When you get on the line, sure, it's competition, you want to win, but you want to beat the other person and you want them to be at their best. So you want to help them to be their best so you can have a great competition when it comes to shooting. Marnie, how did you actually get into pistol shooting in WA1500?
Well, actually, I got into it when my husband and my two sons started pistol shooting a fair few years before I got involved, and that was something that they did of a weekend. The boys got a bit older and had a few other interests, girls and cars, etc., and sort of faded out a little bit. And I just said to Lindsay one day, he's going up the range, I said, I might come up. Now, I don't know if he thinks that's a good thing or not now, but yeah, that's how that started. So that's how I ended up going up there. And of course I was hooked because I'm a pretty competitive person by nature anyway. So I like a challenge and I like to learn, and yeah, it's just gone from there. And then the 1500, when they had the introduction match, firstly in Brisbane, that was my first nationals that I ever went to. So I didn't shoot 1500 at that nationals, but yeah, that was my first introduction to like a national competition.
You're a former top flight gymnast, so that precision and that process that you need to be a good gymnast, does that transfer across into pistol shooting?
I think it's not just that, you know, what particular sport you are, but if you're involved in something and you strive, you always want to do well at everything that you do. And I think that's like every sports person who's successful, it probably wouldn't matter what sport they put their mind to. It's a mindset. It's how you are. Some people are happy just to shoot and have a great time and meet everyone and travel and all of that. Others like to, you know, try and push the barrow a little bit harder for themselves and see where it leads. So yeah, it doesn't really matter, you know, what sport you come from, but if you're a competitive sports person, then I think that would be across anything that you wanted to do.
So, Dean, you guys shoot out of Orange. You've been involved, obviously, with competitive shooting for a while now. Top flight competitor. Your son, Peter, obviously won a world championship last year, and at the early age, you know, he's in his early 20s. I mean, he's got a massive career in front of himself. Who knows how many world championships he might sort of garner over his time. You're doing a bit more coaching, but your origins in pistol shooting?
Yeah, Mike. Well, I met Philip Adams and through a second cousin of mine at the Forbes Pistol Club many years ago, and managed to have a shot at the end of the day with the guys over at Forbes. And I thought if we ever moved to a town or a city that has a pistol club, I'd join. And I did move from Grenfell over to Orange and got involved with the club and started shooting ISSF, and I shot a fair bit of that, and then rolled into service pistol and managed to get onto the state team and continue shooting around Australia at the various national championships. And slowly, when PA became affiliated with 1500, I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to potentially go international. And I managed to jump onto the first or the inaugural team through the selection process, Tony Drabs and myself. And yeah, still very involved with the club. I've been president for a number of years and vice president, committee member, and just really enjoy the sport. And I've had a very, very fortunate long period of shooting at the pointy end of the game, and decided that it was some time back now, decided to try and put back in as much as I possibly could, improve my coaching qualifications, and then along came Peter, and he was a bit of a saviour for me probably. I was sort of contemplating steering the ship in a different direction, and Peter had been hanging around the pistol range for a number of years, and he said, "No, Dad, I'm old enough now, it's time." So it was just a natural sort of progression then to start teaching and coaching Pete, and become more and more interested. He's very, very disciplined and listened very carefully, and all the results are quite evident. You know, he certainly applied himself at a very young age, and you know, he's got a couple of world championships under his belt, and quite a few nationals and states and records on the way. For someone that's only in their early 20s, it's a real credit to him. And he's a good listener, and he's certainly been my wingman for a number of years now. And when I go away coaching various states and things, he's generally there and to give assistance and offer some advice as well, help share the load. And it's kept the fire in my belly. I'm still, I can still hold my own on the range. I have the odd highlight mixed with a few lowlights, but it's really nice to be involved with the sport and to have the family so tightly knit. You know, we travel together. My wife Janine comes to most events, and it's really kept the enthusiasm right up there. Well,
there you go, Kelvin and Glenn. If you get one Bruce, you get two Bruces and probably three Bruces. You get mum, dad and son, so they'll all come across. Big year for your family in 2019. Obviously, we couldn't have our PA and ISSF Nationals this year. They were cancelled, but we had virtual awards, and you won the Coach of the Year. Peter was the Athlete of the Year, Male Athlete of the Year, and also picked up the International Teams of the Year with Chris Banfield. They picked up that World Championship. So a lot of champagne corks popping in your house a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, look, it was really nice to be recognised, Mike. it certainly, yeah, it was certainly a great day to have those. It was nice that PA and yourself could make the awards a reality, even though it was virtual. Yeah, certainly nice to be recognised. I put a lot of work in, not only my own development and Peter's, but you know, quite a few people around various states and locally, and it's certainly nice to be recognised. So it was a really good night.
Yeah, so Kelvin, I'm not sure what they do in New Zealand. We kicked off this year for the first time. We had Volunteer of the Year, Social Media Contributor, Official of the Year, Male, Female Athlete of the Year, WSPS, Junior. We had a whole raft of different awards to try and recognise the people from within the sport. Do they do anything like that in New Zealand?
I think the short answer is no, but that's something that I think possibly will be looked at in the future. But no, there isn't anything like that to my knowledge that at the current time.
Yeah. So Thomas, in Sweden, things like that, like I thought one of the great awards was the Volunteer of the Year award, which is a great one to give out because there's so many people who put in behind the scenes and help with scoring, help out on the range, do maintenance, all those sorts of things. To recognise those sort of people, I felt was really important.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, the championship is not run by those who are compete. It's those who are working in behind, doing all the heavy work for all the competitors. Of course, the competitors contributes with being range officers and so on when needed. But all the major work are those who are working behind, and those people are the true heroes of every competition that you attend. I mean, it's impossible for us to compete on a very, very high level without those people helping out in the behind. So every honor that could be contributed to them should be given to them.
So, Marnie, you were part of the organising committee for the World Championships and you also competed in the team. It must have been a huge workload to organise the championship, get everyone there, down to the brand new range at Hilltop and coordinate, obviously, the entry into Australia with people bringing their firearms, all the government regulations, helping people, obviously, with accommodation and travel, all those sorts of things. A huge undertaking.
Yes, it was a huge undertaking, and I don't think any of us really expected it to be quite so huge. But to the organising committee's credit, we all worked together, and you know, we did the best that we could do, and I think that we really provided a great World Championships. I know a lot of the overseas competitors commented on what a great championships it was. To actually organise it and then to compete in it at the same time is extremely difficult, but still wouldn't have done it any other way. I think it was very important for you know, us to host a world-class competition here on the eastern side of the country, and it worked out really, really well. So, but there's quite a lot of people in the committee and other volunteers that were involved in that. In which we did recognise with awards on the awards night. So it was just a group effort from everybody.
Can I just jump in there too, Mike, and say a big thank you to Martin O'Brien for helping all the international shooters out with their paperwork. I think Thomas would also agree that he did an amazing job at smoothing the way for us with the border patrol, border force to get us in and out of the country very, very easily.
Yeah, it was actually the smoothest handling of guns that I've ever been involved to. I mean, in Europe we travel with something called a European gun passport, and we seldom show that up to the border forces. But traveling outside Europe is a huge hassle, and this World Championship, I've never ever met that kind of service before. I've had a lot of guns with me and a lot of equipment, and I was through within 20 minutes. I can just refer to the 2013 where we were locked down for 3 hours before we have some progress in the matters. So it is astonishing work that Martin did.
Yeah, that was the overall thing that a lot of competitors were saying, that because there was so much work done prior to you arriving, that it made it smoother, and obviously the border force, the officials knew you were coming, they knew what you were carrying, they knew all the details, they had all the permits, so it was easy for them to say, right, we know who you are, bang, off you go through. So that's great. And obviously for Dean, for you travelling overseas, you've had a lot of hospitality, so it's important to pay it forward and give it back to those international competitors coming to Australia.
Look, it was a great opportunity to be able to give back, and I also tip my hat to Martin. He's very good at what he does, and he was our manager for some years, and he certainly learned the way the systems work and the way that we have to deal with travelling around the world, and he put his hand up and done an outstanding job. For us at this end, it was great to be able to return the favour and coordinate the lending of firearms and ammunition and powder and all the things that the Germans and the Swedes and things have done for us over the years. When we get to that side, it's certainly, it was great to be able to return that favour, and I'm sure it'll happen again another day.
Yeah, that idea of travelling, obviously ammunition is difficult to bring with you. You've got to take your firearms, you've got weight restrictions. A lot of competitors did reloading here in Australia, and you guys would have helped out there with your projectile manufacturing business?
Oh yes, there was plenty of the red centre projectiles getting used, amongst others, and yep, there was some of the guys came out from Sweden and Germany quite early and utilised our reloading facilities, our own personal gear, and that's exactly what goes on when we travel over there. You know, the weight restrictions is a real hassle with the 5 kilos, and there's 7 matches plus the teams events, so there's no possible way we can shoot with 5 kilos of ammunition. And over the years, as I said, that the guys have been extremely helpful. As Thomas said, we're a pretty tight-knit family. We've learned from that, and we've certainly returned the favour at this end as best we possibly could. And as Marnie said, it was really overwhelming to get the feedback that we had from our last World Championships here in 2019.
So Marnie, females in WA1500, I know you and Linda Jekyll have pretty tight competition, ranked number 1 and 2 in Australia. There's a few other women getting into the sport?
Yeah, there's a few. There's probably, opportunity for a few more, but yeah, we're trying to promote it as much as we can. It's really good that the girls get an opportunity to be chosen for the national team. They take the top 1 and 2 female over now, which is only a decision that was made a couple of years ago. So up until then, we still compete with the men. There's no separation. It's just sometimes they will recognise in some countries the top female and second, third, etc. And that gives us a little bit more incentive, to get other girls and that into it, because it's a precision match. It's not, it's I don't know. It's just really, really interesting, I find anyway. So along with like service pistol and that we shoot as well. But yeah, the 1500, as Dean mentioned earlier, is what gets you overseas and gives you the opportunity for international competition. And and I think that's also another draw card for the 1500.
So Thomas, I've just thought back, some people joining us here may not know what a WA 1500 match entails. It is 1500 shots, but shot over various distances and various shooting positions. Can you just take us through the different stages of a 1500 match?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, you start with a warm-up, both from 50 and 25 yards. And that's just to side in and maybe give your internals a bit shake up. But then you start on 7 yards. You fire 12 shots in 20 seconds. And from that, you move up to 15 yards and you fire another 12 shots in 20 seconds. And there you have your first, how to say, difficulties that you face, because you have the same time of 7 and 15. You have to be as accurate on 15 as on 7, and that's the first match that people start to fill in for the 1500. Then you move up to, you change target after that one, and then you go to match 2, and that's 25 yards. It's 18 shots in 90 seconds. And you start with 6 shots kneeling, 6 shots left-hand barricade, left-hand side, and 6 shots right-hand side, right hand on the from the barricade. And then that total will be 180 points. And then you lower your tempo, how to say. And the key in the whole WA1500 match is actually to master the tempos, master the changes in the matches, and distribute your usage of the time as efficient as possible. So I'm thinking about all those small things you do besides aiming and pulling the trigger are time thefts, and you have to minimize that. So as efficient as possible on the trigger and the sights. After the match 2, you go up to match 3, and that's 50 yards. And they're actually where the match started, because 50 is difficult. You have to have respect for it. It is fully possible to fill it in from 50, but you have to master. You have to master it. So you start with 6 shots sitting, 6 shots prone, and 6 shots left-hand barricade, and 6 shots right-hand barricade. That's total 24 shots on the target, total in maximum 240 points. After that, you change your target, and then you go back to 25 yards, and there you fired in total 24 shots, divided in two 35-second strings. You fired 12 shots in 35 seconds, then you do a clearing, and then you fire another 12 shots in 35 seconds. And that's also a good match to learn to master, because you earn points and you don't lose points in that one. Then you go back to 7 yards, fire 12 shots, back to 25, do a repeat of match 2. And then in total, you will have 30 shots on that target in match 5. And that then becomes a little bit tricky to score that target. But you have to have your eyes with you and you score it. And then you go back to 50 again, fire 24 shots, and then you have the last 6. A lot of people call those the scary 6, but I really enjoy those last 6 shots, because there you have the total power, how to say, to actually improve your score a lot if you manage those 6 shots in 12 seconds. It's not hard to do. I mean, you do it a lot in practice, but those who feel that, oh, it's only 6 shots left, those will fail. It's just another 6 shots that you have to do your absolutely top best. So I think, well, it's 6 shots and then I have to score. So my match is not finished until I've scored. That's how I manage the match. And I feel that the 1500 gives me a very, very satisfying impression. How to say? It gives me the benefits of in practicing just about every technique you can ever learn in shooting. You need to master your trigger. You need to master your sights. You need to master the timing. I mean, you have to use your time as efficient as possible. You have to be very, very quick in your loads to have your maximum time to just shoot. I mean, aiming time and trigger time is that is productive in the match. Anything else around it is counterproductive. It hinders you. So I try to learn when I teach. I don't know if Dean agrees with me, but when I teach though to do the movements very, very efficient and very, very smooth. And smooth usually is very, very fast.
So you want to obviously do those in between things quickly, but obviously in control, heart rate. You need to keep control of your emotions. You don't, as I said, get ahead of yourself. Oh, I've got 6 shots to go and I'm over. You've got to finish those off. Finish past the finish line.
Yeah, you have to. And they say that well, you have to be healthy. I mean, you have to have a body in health. I mean, if you want to perform on the top, you don't need to be a bodybuilder, but you need to have your body in shape, how to say. So you need to know your body, and you need to know what triggers you and what doesn't trigger you. So to keep yourself in balance, how to say.
Yeah, it's tough. It's 1,500 shots over a number of different segments, lengths and shooting positions. And Dean, I guess for you, Peter shot a 1494 with 111 X's for his Revolver World Championship. I mean, if you're shooting over 1490 out of 1,500, you're shooting really well.
Yeah, if you're shooting 1490 or better, you've really got to dial in. And just to reiterate what Thomas said there, I like how his description, he touched on that. That's match 1 and match 2. Well, there's several matches within the match, and you have to be 100% focused for all of those matches. And I can't emphasise enough the importance of that last 6 shots, because the 50 yards is certainly the most difficult part of the match, and 1500 is an endurance match, so you've certainly got to have yourself pretty savvy and range fit to be able to walk up and down the range, lugging your gear. And a lot of people tend to dial out at the completion of that second 50-metre series, thinking, oh, beauty, that's the hardest part done. They stroll down to that last 6 shots and quite often have a disappointing result there, and because they just haven't quite got it dialed in for the full match. And Pete just he went down, he stayed focused in that 1494, and he punched that last 6 in there magnificently. And you know, we've worked on that and talked about exactly staying on task for the completion of the task, and then walk off the range when the job's done and go about your scoring business. So what Thomas has highlighted there is exactly what needs to be done if you're going to be shooting those 1490 pluses. You have to stay focused within all the matches until the absolute last shot is fired, and that contributes to a great result.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I think I might have just said 1,500 shots. It's 150 shots for 1,500 points. So your maximum is 10. And then the X is obviously at the centre of the 10 ring. So, Glenn, eye fatigue in a match, is that anything that athletes maybe suffer from? It's a long time to concentrate over a period of time and keep your sights in?
Yeah, absolutely. Hydration is one of the absolute key factors. So with dehydration, your eyes are certainly the first thing to suffer there. So I'm really drilling into the people that I work with to just keep hydrating up and down the range, and to make sure that you're focusing on the right area. And that doesn't mean looking down the range at the target and then asking your eyes to come back and try and focus on the sights. You really need to be smart about your the way you go about preparing yourself and your eyes for the match. And the older we get, the less elasticity we have with our lenses in our eyes, so you've got to be a little smarter again. So certainly hydration and being smart about your eye health is a key component.
So, Kelvin, you obviously picked the brains of Dean and the Australian competitors coming across, and as you said, you took a lot of information back. Are you now the WA1500 guru in New Zealand?
I don't think I'm a guru of anything, but I'm certainly a much better shooter for having spoken to Dean. Tried out his grip, which is a killer grip, but I don't think I can master that. But it's certainly the techniques that he shows you to use, and the equipment and the loads that we learned to load while we were in Australia and we're talking to people, that made the world of a difference. The equipment, that made the world of a difference. I'd also give a shout out to Chris Rowe, who put my gun together, my Smith & Wesson 38. It's made a difference to the shooting that I'm now doing with the revolver, because until we met the likes of Chris, we never know how to shoot a revolver. Everybody shot a semi-auto, and it wasn't until we started getting into the WA1500 that we actually knew about shooting a revolver with a 100-grain projectile. Everything else was semi-auto and shooting power-factored loads. So we had a lot to learn. So we certainly do appreciate what we've learned along the way. We still got a lot to learn, however. My problem is I'm just a little bit long in the tooth.
You'll be right, mate. You keep it going, keep it going. So, Marnie, yeah, obviously you shoot pistol and revolver, and for you as an elite competitor, how many shots are you firing a week? How much do you practice?
If I'm in full training, I'd probably put 800 rounds a week down the range. Well, that's what I used to do. I'm changing my training technique a little bit and having less shots and making it more productive. So yeah, it's just a work in progress. You learn and you never stop learning. It doesn't matter if you're the top person in the world, you always learn something. So yeah, but yeah, full training, yeah, about 800 a week.
I see Dean shaking his head there going, yeah, good. Thomas, what sort of amount of shooting are you doing when you're in full training? Obviously, if you've got two hours to drive to get across there, there's time constraints.
Well, I usually can moderate with my work, so I could be efficient on the range. But I fire around 800 to 1,000 rounds a week when I'm in the top training, and I divide my training. I do a training plan. When the season ends in October here in Sweden, I take a rest. I do clean the guns and put them in the safe and put it into rest for a while. Then in November I do the plan for next year. And then I look into what time do I have to practice, what can I afford to practice, and I do a three section training plan. It's both physical, technical, and match training, how to say. So the physical I'll start with first of all, and then I start with the technical one, and then I start with the match training. And then when I started the match training, all the technical training are done. So all the changes I need to do before the match training starts need to be done by then. So in the technical training, it could only be 200 rounds a week, but I do those in perfection, in absolute perfection. So I learn anything new that I need to learn, I do in absolute perfection, and I don't fire one single shot if it's not perfect. And that is to learn the body to see this is how it should be. Then when I go into the match training, I go from 500 rounds up to 1,000 rounds a week. I
So
managed
that's why you're one of the top competitors, because you've thought you've got a match plan, you've got a training plan, you've got processes put in place, also important.
Yeah, it is. It is. You could see a shot as a process, and a process need to be complete exactly as you have been putting up the process. If you have a breakdown in the process, you stop the process and then start again.
So Dean, putting your coaching hat on, obviously as a competitor, how many shots did you shoot when you were training? And then as a coach, what are you recommending and telling your charges to do?
Okay, Mike. Well, I have a varied quantity of shots depending on the calibre of the competition that I'm going to. So the higher the calibre, say World Championships, I'd certainly do more lead-up work into that. And I'm a big believer and coacher of quality, not quantity. That's why I was smiling and nodding my head when Marnie said she's backed off a little bit, because that's exactly what I wanted her to do. And to shoot more quality shots and in Thomas's words, more technical shots, and don't train bad habits. So for me, if I'm leading into a World Championships, I would average around 500 or 600 rounds. But there wouldn't be a day that I wouldn't dry fire. I'm a big believer of dry firing the firearm, just simulating the shot, watching the sights and getting the trigger control and getting my body tuned into being match fit. And then I'll go out and practice at 25 metres on a couple of training sessions, and then I'll go and train on a 50-metre training session. So I break it down, and just still to this day really coach quality, not quantity. No point training bad habits. And for argument's sake, with Pete, when he was learning, you know, he wanted to learn how to shoot 50 metres accurately, so we just worked on prone, and he wasn't allowed to move until the sitting position until he could shoot 60 at prone. And he was a little frustrated with that, but at the end of the day, there was no point moving to the next component until we got that component exact and precise and perfect, as Thomas put it. And then it was time to move to the next section. And so, you know, that just meant quality shots, slow and precise until he got it right. And as I said, he was a little frustrated at times, but now, you know, he's shooting 1490s quite regularly, and the hard work's paying off.
Yeah, so that time in COVID lockdown where you can't go to the range, you can't train, important, as you said, dry firing, exercising, keeping your body right. So when you do come back to the range, you know, you're not getting injuries because you've been training that muscle memory to be able to go again. Marnie, you doing much in isolation?
No, to be honest, I made the decision to have a rest after leading up to getting ready for the Nationals, and my training was right in the exact spot I needed it to be to lead into the Nationals. I felt really good. Then to have that canned as it was, it's a big letdown, and I had to work out how I was going to manage it. No, I'm not saying that's how everyone should do it, but I decided to have a break, and I'm going to start the season off fresh. You know, as soon as we can get back on the ranges. I'm doing still my mental training, visualization and that at home, but I certainly have had a break, and I don't think that's going to be detrimental to my performances. I think that's actually been very, very good for me mentally. So just to reset, and then I can go again, just like a new year.
Yeah, well, that idea of an off season. I'm just going to share a screen again here for a moment. I just want to encourage people to give us some questions and answers. If you want to type that Q&A button on the bottom of the screen, please let us know. Also, I just want to remind people that one too many. If you want to suggest any topics here on the PA webinar, that's pawebinar@pistol.org.au. So we look forward to hearing from you if you've got ideas on topics we should cover in the webinar, or if you've got questions that you want answered in future webinars, please just email there, pawebinar@pistol.org.au. And of course, we've got a quiz show coming up. We've got the fortnightly range report, and we've got a quiz show starting next Wednesday, the Corona quiz, and it's New South Wales taking on NT in the first round. We've got all the states and territories on board with that one, so make sure our pistol people in Australia that you tune in for that one, because that's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, we'll give everyone an opportunity here now maybe to ask some questions, but anything you want to wrap up? We'll go around the screen. Marnie's on the top there. Anything you want to wrap up for the end?
No, not. I haven't really got anything else to say, other than looking forward to things getting back to normal with our ranges and that. So every state's different, and yeah, there's still a long way to go before anything will be anywhere near normal for anybody. So yeah, we just have to go with the flow, and yeah, see how things pan out in the next couple of months.
Kelvin, anything you want to wrap up with?
Oh, just a shout out to the Austrian team who invited us to breakfast, not knowing who the heck we were, but saw that we might have been shooters. Invited us to breakfast, and we had breakfast with them every morning of the tournament. A great bunch of guys, and yeah, we got on like a house on fire. Just the camaraderie from those guys. Great bunch of jokers, and yeah, so shout out to them. I hope they're all doing well.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving your time from New Zealand today. And Thomas, all the way from Sweden, mate, we did move it back 2 hours to allow you to be about 9 o'clock in the morning rather than 7 a.m. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts and experience here on our PA webinar.
Yeah, thank you. I happily join whatever you come up with, because one of the key, as I see in my shooting, is actually to teach others how to shoot. Then you practice or rehearse your own shooting, and you always question, do I do this in the right thing or not? So that's one of the keys actually to be a very, very good shooter, actually to give whatever you can to others in order to have them improve in this shooting, because this shooting is the best shooting I ever been doing. It contributes to me personally so much, so I quitting this is not in the question at all. I will be ongoing until I go in a wheelchair onto the range, because it contributes so much, meeting old people around the world, and as long as my eyes are with me, I will be ongoing shooting. And when my eyes will fail me, I will be in the background and working instead. So.
Dean, anything you want to echo there and comments from you?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah. First of all, you know, we're coming close to the restrictions being eased a little bit here in Australia, and I hope that's the same for our shooting colleagues around the world. My thoughts go out to anyone that sort of suffered with family or friends through this COVID-19 pandemic. It's been certainly a world-changing experience for us, not only in the shooting fraternity. And I really look forward to being able to get back on the range and catch up with the family and friends. I call them family because they're all part of the shooting family. I just look really forward to being able to get back on the range and catch up with those guys and girls socially and compete against them. And thanks very much for Kelvin and Thomas for their time, and Marty and yourself, of course, but for our international guys. I really appreciate your time.
Okay, so we're just going to, I've got to thank a couple of people also, so we'll just jump across to another screen here, and just want to thank all our state and territory bodies. We've had a group that meets every Wednesday, and we've been coming up with ideas and thoughts and trying to engage the pistol community during this time of lockdown. It's quite an unusual time in the globe, and hopefully we've been engaging people. So I want to thank ACT, Northern Territory, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, Tasmania and WA pistol shooting organisations there for all their support, along with staff and management at Pistol Australia, who have really worked overtime here to try and bring these webinars and bring the range report, and we're trying to get this quiz show up, all sorts of things to try and engage people, because you can't get on the range, and Saturday afternoon's probably the time you'd be there. But on behalf of everyone, Marty, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Thank you for having us.
Thomas, great time in Europe, mate. Hopefully we get to see you soon.
Yeah, I hope so. So, thank you all.
And Dean, hopefully as we come out of lockdown, we've got some ideas about coming around and trying to promote some of the people that give product and support in the world of pistol shooting in Australia. So, mate, we'll be in touch with you and hopefully can do a bit of a story on Red Center projectiles. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here on the PA webinar. Another one over and done and dusted. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning out of Europe, and Saturday evening late for Kelvin. We'll see you all very, very soon. Bye, everyone.